Lloyd Vance covers the NFL, always kind enough to join us on the Boardwalk Hunt Hotline, talk a little NFL. We are already 9 weeks or so in the books, and good to talk to you again, my friend. How you been?
Hey, Q, how you doing? Week 10, and we're going to find out who the contenders are and who the pretenders are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's get to that game the other night, the Dallas Cowboys and the Titans. I was not shocked that the Cowboys lost that game, but listen, I've just seen a quarterback who has regressed. I think he was protected his rookie year with that offensive line and Elliott, and then you started to take some weapons away. No Bryant, no Winton this year. The line's not as good as it was in years past, but to me, he's a quarterback that's regressed. Quite frankly, I don't think you can win and build around Dak Prescott. And I just look at that Dallas franchise as a whole, and it starts at the top with the owner, Jerry Jones. You heard Aikman make his comments, but where are you with the Cowboys right now and the progression/regression of a quarterback in Dak Prescott?
Yeah, Q, I definitely have to agree with you. Everybody's blaming Jason Garrett and Scott Linehan, and they do have a piece in this, but Dak Prescott on the field is just not getting it done. He's very tentative in the pocket, holding the football way too long. They did get him Cooper, and they started clicking early in that game. But that interception in the end zone was egregious. He was bracketed. You know, there's no way that pass is getting in there. And it just showed you he's a guy that just makes bad decisions. And his rookie year, I heard you talking about that. You know, Ezekiel Elliott was a guy to make the engine run. But now teams are just sitting on Ezekiel Elliott, and they're putting too many in the box. And the Titans are a very physical team, only allowing about 17 points per game. They really got after Ezekiel Elliott and kept hitting Dak Prescott, and he was just not comfortable.
Yeah, it's a big game for the Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday night. The Eagles coming off their bye. They got out of London against Jacksonville with a win. Now it looks like they're not going to have Sproles, but they did make the trade and acquisition of Golden Tate, which I think is a playmaker and an upgrade. I ultimately don't know I look at this team right now, and the Eagles, I still can't figure out their identity. And I think the one thing that stands out, last year when they were absolutely dominating opponents, there were a couple things that factored into that and their success. They were able to, they started to run the football. We know the quarterback was playing lights out, and we understand the line was doing what they were supposed to do. They were keeping the quarterback, for the most part, upright, even though he took some hits. Ultimately, though, they were an opportunistic defense, and they would get the turnovers, and those turnovers would shorten up the field. You know, pick sixes, fumble recoveries, shorten up the field. You know, flip the field for Carson Wentz. Those turnovers were turned into points, and they were a very stout tackling team. The linebackers have really not played up to snuff this year, especially Bradham after that contract that he signed in the offseason. The defense is not as opportunistic as they were last year, and I think that's one of the reasons I still don't know the team's identity. I don't know if you agree with that. I don't know if you agree with that wholeheartedly, but last year what helped them was that defense, and this year we're seeing laps where they can't get teams off the field. They're giving up chunk plays, and they're not causing turnovers.
I definitely agree with you. Jim Schwartz is kind of, you know, he got the big reputation now. They won a Super Bowl, but this defense is not getting after people the way they were last year. They need the pressure up front to help that secondary. Let's face it, the secondary is beat up, and when the guys are healthy, you got players like Jalen Mills just aren't stopping anybody. So they need to get pressure on the quarterback, and that will drive the turnovers. But this Eagles game, as you're saying, it's a desperate situation with Dallas coming in here. This division is up for grabs. Let's face it, the Washington Redskins, with most of their offensive line hurt, and they may be regressing as well. The Eagles at 4-4 can't catch the Redskins, so a lot of key games coming up divisionally down the stretch, and they're going to have to pick it up. But as you're saying, it's going to start with defense. It's going to start with protecting the football and running the football. I do expect them to get Golden Tate involved in some short passes in this game against Dallas. So.
Well, I can see first play they might open it up and go to them. But you're right. When you look at the Cowboys, you know, you look around the NFC with some of these teams that have lost 2 in a row. That can quickly become 3, 4 in a row. The same could be said for teams that have won a couple in a row, like the Panthers and the Falcons. Those 3-game winning streaks can quickly be 5, 6 games. I look at the Cowboys, I look at the Packers, I look at the Lions. They're starting to question the head coach and the quarterback. The Packers, who've got major issues. You know, I want to stick with them for a second. You look at Green Bay, and I think a lot of people I believe McCarthy is a good coach. I don't think he's a great coach, but I also think they're not giving Aaron Rodgers that supporting cast. And when they come out and they make the admission, okay, we're going to trade Montgomery, and we know why they traded Montgomery, because he took the ball out of the end zone against the Rams, and he basically cost them the game. Then they trade Clinton-Dix, and they're trying the fan base. We're not throwing in the towel because we still have Aaron Rodgers, but yet this is a team that's lost 2 in a row. They're 3-4-1. They're kind of buried in the NFC North, and I do think the brunt of it, the criticism, has to fall on the feet of Mike McCarthy. I think at times he's holding the offense back, so to speak. Is the criticism warranted, or is this, it's just not their year, and they had to deal with Aaron Rodgers being nicked up, which almost seems to be the norm?
Well, I do have to agree with you, because let's face it, they get rid of Dom Capers as defense coordinator. I kept saying he was a problem, and then they also get rid of their general manager, make a change there. And, Aaron Rodgers is left with a pretty good roster, but a roster that has a lot of holes, and they always expect him to cover up the holes. And, yes, he can lead those great comeback victories, but he is going to need some help, particularly in the offensive line. He is running for his life back there. And Jones is a good young running back, but once he turned that football over, they kind of got away from it in the last game. This is a big spot for them. Miami's coming in. This is a home game for them. And it's a situation where they need to get a win, because, let's face it, the Vikings seem to be ascending. Aaron Rodgers does not seem happy with McCarthy. People I've talked to up there said this marriage is probably going to end. And McCarthy, he's just not on the same page with Rodgers. So I expect Rodgers to eventually, with that big contract, he's going to be a guy that's kind of going to lead this team.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, with that contract, and then you look at the head coach is set up to go. And another thing, the Packers stink on the road. They just can't win on the road. They lost to the Lions, the Rams, the Patriots, the Redskins. You're right, they got a break because this game is at home in Green Bay, but then they got to go right back on the road, Seattle and the Vikings. So this is it. This is their last stand against the Miami Dolphins. If you can't beat Miami, you don't deserve to go to the playoffs, because you got Seattle and the Vikings right there in front of you as well. I think the North is an interesting division. I'm looking around. You look at the South, and I just thought going into that game, New Orleans and the Rams, as great as both teams are, you still got to remember, at the end of the day, the Saints still have Drew Brees. Now, he might not always be prolific week in and week out, but they always typically find a way to win, and they are flat out a different team at home. Everyone wrote them off when they gave up 48 to Tampa to start the season, and they've ripped off 7 in a row. I mean, right now, the Saints, the Rams, Carolina, I think those are your strongest teams right now in the NFC.
I definitely have to agree with you there. And then the Saints really showed you a lot the week before when they went to Baltimore in a sloppy situation. Weather was not conducive outside the dome, and they won a tough physical football game. Come back, they beat the Rams in a shootout-type game, and that may be the preview of the NFC Championship game. And Drew Brees is playing at MVP level, has not won one yet, but he's completing 76% of his passes. Now you get him Des Bryant to go along with Kamara and the other receiver. This team is very explosive. They average 34 points a game, and I just don't see that stopping anytime soon. But as you were saying, Carolina's right there, and Carolina is a huge game, only one game behind the Saints at this point.
Yeah, we don't know if Bryant's going to play this week or not. What's your thoughts on what's going on with the Jets and Sam Darnold? I know they listed him as questionable on the injury report. I believe it's a high ankle sprain. I think that's kind of scapegoating. I mean, if you're Todd Bowles, just be honest and transparent and come out and just say, look, the kid's struggling. We're just going to sit him down. I think he's kind of getting a taste for NFL life, NFL action. And also, he's a warm weather type of quarterback playing in the Northeast and in New York. And, at MetLife with the winds and the rain, it's kind of a different animal. But what's your assessment thus far, what the Jets are doing with Sam Darnold?
Well, he's a good young quarterback, and let's face it, he probably should have sat for a little bit longer than they did. They put him right out there because he had a good first couple games, good preseason as well. And he's a young guy. Unfortunately, he's made some bad decisions with the football, the NFL leader in interceptions. I think he is going to get better, but they do have to improve the offensive playmakers around him. There's really not a lot in the cupboard for that team. Todd Bowles, a coach that's fighting for his life, I think he's sitting Darnold because he probably want to win ugly with McCown rather than, getting the rookie experience, and eventually that'll be at his expense. So, it's a situation where Darnold's going to sit down, he's going to learn, and McCann will go out there and be a player coach on the field.
If you are Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers, you got a huge game against Carolina. You got the issue today with Brown, who was cited for going over 100 miles driving. They're still in the dark about Le'Veon Bell. If you are that franchise, see, I believe they've already moved on from Le'Veon Bell. They're just not making it public. I think Tomlin doesn't care anymore. They got Connor, who's just playing lights out. They've got players now that are starting to step up. Their defense is starting to pick it up. I don't think these players even want to talk about Le'Veon Bell anymore. I don't think they're going to invite him back into that locker room with open arms. If you're Bell and you decide to come back, you got to produce and you got to shut up and play. But if you're the Steelers, do you just kind of wash your hands away, wipe your hands clean of Le'Veon Bell? Because I think right now, he shows up or he doesn't, they don't know what the hell's going on right now. So I think you have to just keep playing out the season as if, say, he's on the IR and you're not going to get him back.
Right, and right now what they're going to do is he's going to be a spare part queue. He's going to come in probably around Tuesday. He's due in by 4 o'clock if he wants to accrued season and not have the ability for them to franchise again. So I fully expect him to come by next Tuesday by 4. And then I think the Steelers are just going to kind of put him on the back burner because, let's face it, James Conner averaging 150 scrimmage yards per game, running the ball and receiving. He just is running very hard, and he's at a very good price in terms of his pay. So he's still on that rookie deal. Le'Veon Bell, they'll probably get him more involved in the passing game, see if he's in shape. I talked to some guys, and they said he didn't look that good on social media in terms of partying and stuff, but we'll see what kind of guy he shows up to be. But you're right. The offensive line in particular has kind of stepped away from him, and the team's going to move forward one way or the other. The big thing is I'm going to worry about for him is the hamstring. Is he going to pull a hamstring or something like that when he comes back because he's not in football shape? I
look at some of these coaches that are on the hot seat, McCarthy, Cutter, Joseph, Bowles. We saw already what happened with Haley and Hugh Jackson. Then you look at what's going on in New York with the Giants and Shermer. I think they basically put Eli on notice, but because Laletta has the issue where he gets the traffic stop and they'll deal with it in-house, so to speak, it kind of reopens up the door for Manning. And I started to think about this the other day, and as crazy as this might sound now in November, I understand the cap hit next year. You have to see what you have in Kyle Laletta at some point, but I don't know. Even if they wanted to go bridge quarterback after this year, who's not to say that Eli's not the starter under center again next year? They're going to have to draft a quarterback, but if they don't like a quarterback coming out of the draft, who's to say some of these bridge guys out there are better than Manning? Like, it's just this whole Laletta situation kind of put things in flux a little bit because Manning's going to start Monday night against the 49ers, which is, a winnable game, even though the 49ers have showed that they played hard. They've got Tampa. They've got the Titans. They've got some winnable games. And at the end of the day, Shermer wants to win some football games, but it's almost crazy to think maybe there's a percentage that he's back under center next year if they draft a quarterback.
Yeah, there's that chance because, let's face it, he has that contract and he's the veteran. He's a guy that's won for them in the past, and they just don't want to kick him out of the door. The thing is, though, about Shermer, I think if this team continues underachieving as they have, they will bring in a young quarterback, and then Eli has a decision to make. Is he a guy that's going to be a teacher and groom this young quarterback to take his place, or does he kind of say, you know what, enough's enough, waive his no-trade clause, and he goes someplace else? So a lot of big decisions there for Dave Gettleman, the general manager, and I think they're going to go in a new direction, though, and bring in a quarterback and try to improve this team. They do need a young superstar to re-energize them. Right now, the Giants want a cornerstone franchise in the NFL. They're one of the laughing stock.
Yeah, but again, you got to go back to this, right? With Gettleman dealing with the cancer and fighting through that, and health is the utmost importance. If he decided to step away, they're not going to have a GM, and if they don't believe in any of these quarterbacks coming out, what are you going to? You're going to go a Foles route? I mean, come on. Maybe a Bridgewater, cheap, but I just don't know. I think, see, this is why now you're looking at Darnold struggle. And whether he has an injury or not, you're seeing some of these rookie quarterbacks struggle. This is why you can't always jump and say you have to take a franchise quarterback. If you don't believe in a franchise quarterback, you don't draft him. The problem is they put all their eggs in one basket with number 10 in an offensive line, and quite frankly, it's been a disaster. And the head coach looks like he's totally overwhelmed right now. He really does.
He does, and what they need to do is just play the season out, and then just start cleaning that locker room out of guys. And they already have begun this process, getting rid of guys like Eli Apple that didn't fit their direction they want to go in. And I think they will continue that, just cleaning house and bringing in guys that are going to restore this franchise to where it needs to be, whether it's a quarterback. But I also think you were talking about that offensive line. They got to build that back up. No matter who the quarterback is, they got to find 5 guys up front that can play day in, day out, and help him out.
Lastly, before I let you get out of here, who's done the most impressive coaching job thus far in the NFL? I mean, you can easily look at the Belichicks and the Tomlins and the O'Briens and what Andy Reid's doing, but in your estimation right now, who's been the most impressive head coach?
Yeah, Q, you didn't name him, but Anthony Lynn. I think Anthony Lynn with the
Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, the Los Angeles Chargers has done a great job with that team. So explosive. They bring in Ponte at the center, has really solidified this team. And they can score with anybody, and that defense can get after the quarterback. So that's a team that's very dangerous. A lot of people aren't talking about them. But they have a chance to catch KC, and he deserves some look for Coach of the Year.
How about the year that Rivers is having? I mean, you can put him in the MVP race. I mean, he's having a great. He's on pace for 38 touchdowns and 6 picks.
Yeah, he's playing better than he ever has, and look at Melvin Gordon as well. He's really explosive catching the football as well. They're doing a great job, and their schedule is real conducive as well. Yeah,
it is, and that helps this time of the season. All right, my friend, we will talk to you next week. I always appreciate a couple moments and great insight as always, pal.
All right, Q, thanks for having me on.
All right, Lloyd Vance. Check him out on Twitter at Lloyd Vance. And, of course, NFL Network, BigPlayFootball.com, taking it to the house. Kind enough to join us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline.